Hey y'all, what's up? Welcome to the Coachable Podcast. I am the host of this show, Tori Gordon, and I'm excited to be here in the studio today. It's just me, solo dolo, but here to speak another heartfelt message to you about a topic that I think absolutely every human in the world could benefit from hearing. And if you're new to this show, welcome. I'm so glad you found your way to this corner of the internet somehow, some way. It is my assertion that it is not by accident that you made it here, that I believe that there is something for you in this conversation and in this message that is directly meant for you to hear. And so I hope and invite you to open your heart and open your mind to receive and to listen and to see if anything that I share with you today about the topic of letting go of the need to control and overanalyze and plan every detail of your future, letting go of that anxiety that comes with trying to figure it all out and allow yourself to embrace the reality of what is right here and right now. And that's what I want to talk to you guys about in this episode. I was contemplating something recently on a recent, in a recent ceremony that I was in. I guess I would say I was having this, what felt like to me a deep thought. And I like to bring those kind of thoughts into, this type of environment where I can kind of chew on them a little bit and piece them apart. And the thought that I had was just how surprising it is to be living the life that I'm living in certain ways. In certain ways, it's not surprising at all. But the thought that I had was I never thought I would be living the life that I'm living today. And I started thinking about and wondering, is anyone living the life that they thought they would be? I started playing with that idea and started asking my friends, like, are you living the life you thought you would? Like when you were a child, when you were growing up and you thought about the future, did you see yourself where you are today in the city or the state that you live in the relationship or in a season of singleness with kids or not with kids? I remember specifically a couple of years ago when I left Atlanta and I started traveling cross country, and I really didn't have a plan. I didn't know where I was going to go. I just knew that I had to go somewhere, that it felt like that chapter of my life was over. And I remember traveling and kind of just dating cities and following my intuition and trying to, follow what felt inspiring and what I was curious about at the time. And I was on a hike in Sedona, Arizona, and I had taken some mushrooms and gone on this beautiful hike. And a couple hours into that hike, I get to the top or around this bend. If you've ever been to the Airport Mesa hike, it's a masculine vortex. It's an absolutely beautiful, breathtaking view. And I look out over the Sedona red rocks, and my breath is virtually taken away. And I gasp at the beauty. And then I just break out into a ball of tears and grief. And I'm looking out over the horizon and I'm just grieving this life that I thought I was going to live, that I wasn't. I don't know what I thought my life was going to look like, but I certainly knew that the one I was living was not what I was expecting. I was letting go of this idea of myself, letting go of this idea of what my life should look like, what I thought it would look like at the time I was 30 years old, and I was like, wow, I'm 30. I'm going through a separation. I don't have a home. I'm traveling alone. Most of my family is dead. I don't know where I'm going, but I'm following my heart. And those were some of the things I was running through in my head. Is like, how did I end up here? I never thought I would have been here, but yet here I am. Here I am on this mountain looking over these cliffs, and I am right here, right now. And I remember that day so clearly because it was a turning point of just really like reconciling and wrestling with this idea of what I thought life was going to look like and coming into deep level of acceptance of what life was. And, when I was younger, I thought I was going to get married to my college sweetheart and we were going to have kids, and I thought I was going to go into ministry, and I thought I was going to have a completely different life. I thought I was going to be a pastor's wife and we were going to do ministry together, and like my life looks absolutely nothing like that now. I feel like I do ministry in a completely different way for completely different reasons. But here I am at 33, living in Las Vegas of all places, an entrepreneur, been doing this for the last 5 years, but could have younger me anticipated or planned this. There's absolutely no possible way. There's no possible way that you could know what was going to happen in your future. Yet so many of us spend so much energy and effort trying to predict a future that has not happened yet. And how often we spend so much of our energy, so much of our attention, so much of our thinking getting wound up in the possibility of a potential future that we want to avoid. If you're somebody that walks around life and you feel like you're constantly bracing for something, but you don't know what it is, if you feel like this intense pressure to figure it all out, like you need to know what you're going to be doing 5 years from now, and you need to know what you're going to be doing every day before that and have a solution and to every potential problem. If this happens, then I'm going to go here. If I don't get into this school, then I'm going to have this backup plan, right? And it's like, holy shit, that is a lot of pressure to put on yourself. And there's absolutely no way we will know what's going to happen later today. For many of you, you didn't know what I was going to say in this conversation today. You didn't know what was going to come out of my mouth, but these are the words that are coming out of my mouth, right? Like you couldn't have predicted necessarily exactly how your life is going to go. But, I think about the amount of anxiety so many of us live with, because I used to be one of them. And I want to give you some things to think about to help you release this need to figure everything out. Because, like, side note, tip of the day, you can't. You can't figure it all out. There's absolutely no way. Because here's the thing. Life is uncertainty. That is its nature. It's like fire is hot and water is wet and the sky is blue. Like that is its nature. Life is uncertainty. The only constant in life, the only predictable thing you can hold on to is the fact that things are going to change. Things are going to change. And the moment you try to control your life and you try to force it is the moment it slips through your fingers. It's no longer there because something is changing within your circumstances. Even if you do everything in your power to micromanage the fuck out of your life, you're white knuckling it so hard trying to control it because you're afraid. You're afraid of where you're going to end up because you have this belief that tells you if you don't figure it all out, if you don't have a plan, if you don't force it to become what you think it needs to become, then you're not going to be okay. But my friend, I need you to hear this today. Like that story of I'm not going to be okay is not a truth. It's not a truth. Is it true that you're not going to be okay? Could you know that without a shadow of a doubt? Because I'm sitting here in this beautiful studio when my sister was dying, when my mom was dying, when I was getting my heart broken, when I was going through the hardest moments of my life. I promise you, I thought, how am I ever going to be okay? But I sit here today as I'm more than okay. I'm alive. I'm healthy. I have vitality. I have community and friendships, and I have a relationship with myself that is nourishing and loving. I like who I am. I have so much. But there have been times in my life I always lived with the ups and downs of work and of am I going to have enough to pay my bills when I started my business? Am I going to have enough clients, or am I going to have to go back to a 9-to-5? Am I going to end up homeless? Like all the thoughts that talk you out of pursuing or doing the thing that you want to do because you're afraid. But if life is uncertainty, if we can embrace the fact that everything is uncertain, then we can walk into this moment and we can embrace the future knowing that all possibilities exist, including, yes, all of our worst case scenario thoughts that we are over-analyzing and we're rehearsing in our mind over and over and over again, which is somewhat of a self-fulfilling prophecy because we're spending so much time thinking about it. Oftentimes we end up creating that as a real life scenario. But within uncertainty is also endless possibility. Every good possible outcome that you have yet to even imagine exists in the unknown. The love of your life could walk in could bump into you at the grocery store tonight, tomorrow, and you couldn't predict it. Like the people who mean the absolute, mean so much to me in my life. I think about how I met those people and how unpredictable it was, how just divine intervention led us to the same place at the right time, at the right, season, so that we could meet each other and we could learn from each other and we could grow together. I couldn't have planned it. I couldn't have written in my journal, or on my planner, August 22nd of 2024, this is going to happen. No, life just unfolded in this beautiful nature. And, I want to share this because I think so many of you guys are trying to figure out something that hasn't happened yet, and you can't figure it out because you just literally can't, but you keep on trying. You keep spending your energy trying and trying over and over to figure it out. And no wonder you're exhausted, right? You have so much dis-ease around the future when you're overthinking and overanalyzing. You're so in need of controlling the situation because you don't trust that it's going to unfold for your good, that it's actually going to lead you to a place that's more beautiful than you could have ever imagined or predicted or planned for, right? But built into the human experience, we come pre-installed when we come into this experience, when we are born into the 3D, when we plop down on planet Earth, pre-installed into that is the concern about the future. It is innate. It is primal because we have a built-in system called the brain that is wired for survival. It's trying to predict threat and perceive any threat so that it can alert us so that we can do what needs to be done so that we can survive. But yet we live from that part of our brain operating 24/7, just constantly in high alert. Is there a threat? Is there a threat? Oh my gosh, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So let me try to figure it out and micromanage it. So I have everything planned to a T, and it has to happen exactly the way I need it to happen. And if it doesn't, I'm completely going to be derailed and on an emotional roller coaster. And I might have a panic attack because, God forbid, life does anything other than what I want it to do. That energy is creating so much dis-ease in your system, which will eventually, if you spend years and years and then decades and decades and decades of your life doing this and living from that energy, no wonder so much of us, we get cancer. No wonder we get tumors. No wonder we get, autoimmune disorders. No wonder we have insane migraines or things that we'll go to the doctor with symptoms and they can't figure it out because it's stress related. It's stress induced. By the way, 90% of everything that we go to the doctor for is related to stress, which is inflammation in the body. It's accumulation. That's what leads to disease. Everything that happens and is manifest in the physical world first starts energetically, vibrationally within our system. And our thoughts are one of the highest forms of vibration, of frequency. Your thinking. So if you are constantly thinking about all of the worst case scenarios, what's going to happen tomorrow? I got to figure it out. You're holding that pre-installed condition to figure out the future is what inspires anxiety, tension, holding, apprehension, concern, worry, and the need for control. So if you can identify, okay, if I feel those ways, this is the primal part of me. This is the human, not the being, the human aspect of me that is trying to ensure that I survive. And if I can get out of my human for a minute and connect to my being, my spiritual essence, my soul, my nature, then I can remember that life is happening for me, that not only can I not figure out everything, but I don't have to. That actually, if I can release the story that I'm not going to be okay, if I can actually allow that to just leave for a minute and just pretend, let's use our imaginations and pretend that it's not possible for me to not be okay. Because if not being okay equals death, like that is certain for all of us. We are all going to die, 100%. That is one guarantee. That is one certainty about life that you can rely on. Everything else about life is uncertainty, except the fact that we're all going to die. And none of us know and can predict when that will happen. So if I don't know when my final day will be, and I don't have to figure it out right now, can I live within this moment and let go of that story? I'm not going to be okay. If that story gets dissolved for a moment, oh, the deep breath that I can breathe. The amount of the way your nervous system will naturally respond and react to that natural sense of safety in the body of I'm not over and over again telling myself the story that I'm not going to be okay. I'm not going to be okay. If I'm constantly telling myself that, I'm going to be holding and bracing and anxious and constantly on high alert. But if that's not the story that rules my mind, then I can relax. I can be open. I can be playful. I can be present. I can be in this moment. One of the ways I describe anxiety and the way it presents for me in my body is, the metaphor I give is like a little child that's at the playground with his mom. And if you're a parent, you probably understand this, but if your child is young and starts to go to play on the playground, or you're playing at a park and they get a little too far away, you might say, "Hey baby, come back over here closer to mom or closer to dad where I can see you. Or I can keep an eye on you, make sure you're good." I feel like that is what our bodies are doing when anxiety is the mother that calls to you and says, hey, baby, come back over here. You've wandered too far off in the distance. You've wandered too far off into the future. Come back here to the present moment where we can be together. You know, another way that I have heard this, like put into a beautiful example is when if you tear or like pull apart the fabric of your shirt, the fabric, when I pull this apart, is under tension. It's essentially under stress, right? And when we when we are thinking about the future 24/7, we are under tension. We are under stress. And if we can come back to the present moment and release the story, which is just a story, it's just programming. When you realize that it's just a story, it's not you, it's not a truth, then you can come back and you can let go and you can come back into ease, come back into neutrality, come back into your natural essence, which is vitality, which is health, which is creativity. So if you don't have to figure it all out, then how do you make decisions, right? Like, especially when it comes to big decisions, you have to figure out where to move, or if you should be in, like, if you want to be in this relationship or that relationship, or where to go to school, or if you should take this job. I get it, right? And you still have to make choices. That's the beautiful thing about being human, is that you have a choice. The difference is when you're in the present moment, when you release that story of, I'm not going to be okay, or you're bracing for a bad future that has not happened yet. What you're doing is you're unconsciously creating your future. If you don't consciously create your future, your mind will create one for you. And it will look a lot like your past, and it will look a lot like the thoughts that you think on a repetitive basis. And if you're continuing to replay thoughts of negativity, of worst case scenario, you are not going to be satisfied with the life that you end up unconsciously creating for yourself. So you do get a choice. The difference is when you're present, when you've let go of the story and you embrace the possibility that everything exists in the unknown. When you're standing on the precipice of something new, it can be scary, but you can see that as something that's scary, or you can see it as exciting, right? Like anxiety and excitement are the same feeling in the body. It's a different story that's attached to it. So when you make a choice, the difference is you don't make it from fear. You don't make it from self-preservation. Like, what do I have to do to get it right so that nothing bad happens, so that I can survive, so I can be okay? That's pressure. That is tension. That is your shirt being pulled apart and the fabric is going to fray. Some of us, you're mentally fraying. You're coming apart at the seams because you're under so much pressure that you've put yourself under. And you can let that go, because now you can start to make choices, not from this fear-based place of survival and self-preservation, but one of creativity, of creation, of making a decision, not based on, well, what do I need to do so that I do the right thing? It's like, what inspires me? What brings me joy? What brings me energy to think about? What would I love to do versus what do I think I have to do to be okay? Those are completely different experiences, because my friend, you are going to create your future one way or another. I created the life I'm living now. Did I think this was the life I was going to live? Like all those years ago? No. But when I first started learning about consciously creating my circumstances and how I could be a co-creator with life versus living in reaction to life, everything started to change for me. Because when you're making choices out of fear and self-preservation of what do I need to do to be okay so that nothing bad happens, you're playing defense. You're playing not to lose. You're playing to just prevent bad things from happening versus moving towards what you want, like playing offense, playing to win. And so that's what I want to invite you into, because when you start making choices about your life, about what's pulling you towards it intuitively, what's calling to you versus making decisions out of fear and limited thinking, there's a world of possibility that's going to open up to you that has never been possible before because you weren't aware that it existed. New possibilities have opened up. And I hope you feel that as you allow that to land, not just in your mind, but land in your heart and land in your body. Maybe it will allow you for the first time in a long time to take a really, really deep breath and realize it's futile. It's exhausting to try and figure out everything because there's absolutely no way you can predict the unpredictable. And that is life. It's uncertainty. The only guarantee is that one day we're going to take our last breath and we're going to be on to the next. And when that's going to happen, none of us know. But that you can ensure that you're going to get so much more out of life. You're going to enjoy life more. You're going to be able to be present and to have more fun and health and vitality and longevity when you let go of the story that you're not going to be okay and you start embracing the uncertainty that is inevitable and using it to project the life you want to create and moving towards what you desire versus running away from what you're afraid of. I hope this spoke to you. I hope this landed for you. I hope this really gave you a shift in your perception and the way you think and approach your day-to-day life and your chronic need to figure it all out. If that's you, you're certainly not alone. You are a human being. Just understand that is your human. That is not you. That is your ego that is built to help you survive in the world. And it's gotten you here, but it doesn't have to be in the driver's seat. When you start leading from your heart, when you start making choices that are aligned with your soul, I promise life is going to feel so much better and you're going to be able to start to develop a life that feels on the inside as good as it looks on the outside. If this episode spoke to you today, I ask that you share it with a friend or post it on social media or even leave us a rating and review wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's Apple or Spotify, or subscribe to us on YouTube. We put this content out every single week in the hopes that it inspires you to live a little bit more present and to take your power back. I'm your host, Tori Gordon. I'll see you next week on the Coachable Podcast.